AI-powered fraud defenses for 24/7 gaming, real-time monitoring, time zone risk, and responsible deployment.
Good afternoon, everyone. How are you doing? My name is Chai, and I spent the past 20+ years across the financial services, e-commerce, and payment industries, particular focus on the fraud risks and AML side. So yeah, but at Seon right now, I'm working with the gaming operators across globally and in the Asia region in terms of safer growth as well as a stronger player protection, right? So I think today's topic is more around AI-powered 24/7 gaming. So we all know that definitely iGaming is one of the very few industries that never closes, right? So the players betting at 2 a.m., bonus is clear as at 3 a.m., and the withdrawal is 4 a.m. But most of your defense and the operation team, most of the time, they run based on the business hours. So that's where the gap is, and then that's where the modern risks thrives on it. So I'll just touch base on this one. The next 15 minutes, I'll just quickly cover around what kind of the risks that you see on the 24/7 gaming and the overnight window, and how would it look like in terms of AI real-time monitoring to cover those kind of, address the fraud cases. Then how would the AI responsible deployment looks like for this industry particularly, right? So earlier this year, we did the survey with all those leaders around fraud and AML in the gaming industry, right? So 57% of the operators says the fraud cases are happening more than the actual revenue itself. So which means the fraud cases are shifting from normal loss and the cost side going into growth of the business as well. Then another one to highlight is in terms of account takeover, promotional abuse, and the loyalty abuse, right? Those made up for about 68% of the actual business itself. So if you think about it, those three categories, they are the one that you are giving out the incentive to go into the new markets, right? To retain the new customers. That's what they are trying to aim for it. Another one is in terms of the betting and gaming industry from our survey. So they told us that they have like 4 times more challenges when it comes to getting the unified data across a layer, across the user journey from onboarding, post KYC, and then also the transition monitoring side, right? So that's where the 24/7 attack, 24/7 payment side, as well as a lot of the things happening. So we will look at it a bit more details. So based on our experience, the fraud rings, right, they never stop. They know how the operators, the operations are in terms of the business hours. That's where they try to look for it. They also know that the riskier windows for the operators are, it's not when the transition is highest, right? It's where the oversight is the lowest, right? That's why they look for it. So the first one that I would like to touch base is more around 24/7 time zone concentration. So if you think about it, right, if you operate in the Asia, Europe, and Americas, like most of the operators within this event do. So you have the exposure, right? So one area, the attack happens at the 2 a.m. The other side is the peak hours of the daytime, other side of the wall. The same thing goes for vice versa, and then your operation team is not going to be convening until the 9 a.m. in the morning. That's where the overnight window is. That's where the fraud cases are happening a lot. That's where we see a lot of the transitions happening. The second one is around the payment side, right? So if you think about it, the payment guardrails for the iGaming is not the same with the 3 p.m. versus the 3 a.m. So crypto is very fast, 24/7. Once it's moved, it's gone. It's very difficult ways to recover it. Then if we look at the Apex side, a lot of the APMs, right? E-wallets, fast transfer, instant transfers, they move very fast. Once they move, it's very difficult for you to recover as well. So that's where the risk is happening. So your analysts won't be able to spend hours to check. If there is anything withdrawals happening at the 4 a.m., that's where the window is happening, right? Another one thing that we see in terms of the risks that in this area is responsible gaming. So most of the time, the players playing overnight, that's where in terms of RG risks are spikes. Right? And you can imagine chasing the losses, fatigue patterns, right? All those behavior analysis. But that's where your operation team, RG analysts, they are not around. So this is where the exposure happening. So 24/7 attack, 24/7 payment, and then 24/7 in terms of the player protection obligation, right? So you cannot just put the more analysts to cover this window. It doesn't make sense. So what we normally see is in terms of AI monitoring, that's where the AI comes in, right? Let's see how we normally do it. So not only for presentation slide, right? It's on a real-time basis as well. The first component that we see is around real-time pattern detection. So without AI, fraud prevention is very reactive, right? So any attacks happen, fraud losses happen, somebody investigates it, and the rules get updated. By the time your investigation is done, the fraudster already moved over. So by the time your analysts notice the overnight spikes, right? So the fraud ring already moved over for the other side of the time zone, or maybe probably they will start another coordinated attack on another platform as well. That's where the AI comes in. What AI provides is in terms of latency, right? It's able to allow you to detect the relationship and the repeat patterns, why it's happening, not after it happened. So that's really changed the operational pattern, right? Your team stop catching up. Instead, your team is able to adjust the patterns while the parameters attacks is happening. So this is one of the areas that we see that very useful for the real-time monitoring. Another one area is around behavior, right? So I mean, of course, I talk about the real-time pattern detection. It's only useful if you combine it together with the behavior analysis across the unified context underneath the layer, right? So in this case, I normally use the retention bonus as a case example, right? You all know that retention bonus is one of the very fastest growing fraud in this industry, and that it's almost entirely lives overnight window. For example, you can see, right, the player, fraudster, what they do, they will acquire the dormant account, or they deliberately age it so that it becoming like a lapse account for months, right? How they get it? They use the synthesized real data or partly real data to create a synthetic identity. Then after that, they wait for you to send a retention bonus. So by the time the bonus lands, and then most of the time those bonuses are triggered overnight as the automated marketing flow, right? So that's why they claim the bonus. They will just try to play very minimal, systematic, low-risk play just to meet your original requirements, and they withdraw. So in this kind of scenario, what we see is that most of the time operators, their solutions are a bit siloed, right? So you have a disconnected system around KYC, AML, fraud reduction, as well as the transition monitoring. So all those systems, they don't see each other. So that's why nobody triggers a lot. But when you try to correlate all the signals across the real time, that's where you see the fraud patterns. So the way we do it thing is that if you look at it, somebody come into the platform, new device login, and they go straight into bonus page, right? And then they do systematic wagering play. That's another pattern. Then after that, they withdraw. So if your system look at it from your login system, KYC system, they will see it as a normal device. Normal old account came in with a new device. Nothing wrong because people get a new phone. Then if you look at it from the bonus system, they will look at it. Their risk is clear because it's very legitimate. Somebody lapsed account came over and reclaimed your bonus. Then finally, from the payment system, there's nothing wrong either. It's a routine event. But if you everything combined together, that's where we can see where the risk is, right? That's why you had to be able to see everything across the cable. And then that's the reason that we talk about correlation. So correlation across the stages in real time. And then you use the player's historical behavior and the baseline against the population norms. That's where you can see any spikes that are happening. And then another one thing in terms of real time is the automated escalation, right? So real time pattern triggers a lot, and the behavioral analytics triggers the priorities. But there's no use if you don't have anybody to go after it, right? So if you send anything to the human analyst as a 3 a.m., nobody going to work on it until they come into the online. So that's where the automated escalation is. It should look like this for the web-based system. Tier 1, automated, right? So AI can settle everything, low-risk cases. Tier 2 is going to be a bit of the routing to analyst. Whoever the regional analyst on the pod, they can pick it up, and then they can settle it out. But for the final one, critical escalation like RG, responsible gaming, coordinated attacks, VIP players, that's where you have to wake up somebody there. So this is a framework that we see in terms of detection, analytics, and automatic escalation. Now we talk about challenges and also like how we tackle it. But nothing is useful if you don't have a proper responsible deployment, right? So across the industry that we talk to, the operators and the customer, they tend to like jump into automation because they feel, number one, it sounds really cool, AI and everywhere. Number two is that they think that they will be able to save the cost immediately. So, but just, our advice to them is that, resist the temptation because AI and gaming is a bit different because it's the intersection of the financial harm, regulatory exposure, as well as the player welfare. So that's where the responsible deployment came in, right? We have the 3 layers there, 3 pillars: governance, explainability, and a human oversight. Governance is very simple. Defines the boundaries. What AI can do, what AI cannot do without the human judgment, right? So for example, like normal cases around applying the fission or low-risk cases, AI can do it. They don't need to wake anybody up, right? That's how it's supposed to be. That's tier 1. Tier 2 is more around going to be able to, just like I mentioned previously, you need to be able to get somebody involved. Tier 3 is more around for getting the human must be there, right? That's the governance. You need to have all the foundations there. Governance defines the boundaries. Second pillar is around explainability. That's very important because in this industry, explainability is not only about compliance checklists, it's about operational multiplier, right? So for your compliance officer or the auditor, for them, explainability is more around being able to defend the decision to the regulator. Whatever the decision you make, you have to have an audit trail. That's a must. But when it comes to the analyst, explainability is more around the speed, right? So just imagine if the analyst has to rebuild everything from scratch whenever the automation system, machine learning tells them it's a risk. Why is it a risk? You need to be able to understand the behind, all right? So if you imagine about it, because in our survey as well, so more than half of the operator in the iGaming industry, they said that false positive rate are around 26 to 50% for all the operators. If you imagine all the false positive have to go to analysts, and that they need to rebuild everything from scratch while the decision is being made, it's not going to scale, right? That's why AI came in for the explainability. That's another important pillar. The third one is around human oversight. So in the industry, we call it the human in the loop, right? The loop matters more than the human anyway, right? If you look at it, the wrong version of the human in the loop is that every escalation alerts go to the human being. And the analyst won't be online until the next morning, then that's going to be a problem. Or if you put the analyst to operate at the 3 a.m. every day, they're going to get overburnt. They will just make a wrong decision. So that's where, in terms of right version should be there. Analysts only involved when there is a requirement needed for judgment. Then also, automation cannot solve the problem alone. And then what the AI does in this information and this case is that they will create the volume, they will assemble the case ready for the analyst. Analysts will come in, make a judgment where it matters most. So there's a responsible pillar for the 3 pillars in terms of government defines the boundaries, explainability provide the defensible cases, and the human oversight keep the judgment where it matters most. So that's what I went through, right? The first part is around challenge it. Second part is around how we tackle it. The third part is around how the AI responsible deployment should look like. Just nice, I have a 1 minute plus left. Before I close the session, right, so if only one takeaway, it should be this one. So that's what we talk to all the customer or all the operators that we work with. If you think about it, just adding the new AI features, right, in the disconnected system, it won't deliver that one. Because you need to be able to have a proper unified context across a layer, so the AI will be actually turned from features into use cases. That's important, because there's 2 different things between new AI features versus the AI responsible cases. That's what we see in the market as well, right? So I think just to close it off, if anything resonates in this section, right, so feel free to reach out to me. My email is there. We are at the event, booth number 2322. And then also another one thing is a lot of the data that I quoted in this section, right? If anything needed, please feel free to scan the QR code there. This is our 2026 betting and gaming fraud report, and everything around growth trap loop, survey data, account takeover, bonus use cases, plus also AI and responsible deployment. Everything is there, and the report is free. I'm on time.
You're on time. That's amazing.
Yeah.
Thank you
Cool.
so much to Troy. Can we please have a round of applause
Thank you
for
very
Troy?
much.
Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. What a great presentation.